Spencer, doing a sound check. Can you hear us?
Yes, can you hear me?
I can hear you fine, yes.
Awesome, thank you.
All right. Anything else, Ellis? We're all ready to go? Okay, welcome everybody to today's Soldier Summit Special Service District meeting. I'd like to go through the agenda and any comments or insights on agenda item 1?
I can make a motion that we approve the minutes from last meeting, November 16th meeting.
I'll go ahead and second that motion.
All in favor say aye.
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 Passes 3-0. Agenda 2, discuss the Alfred water usage and potential agreements, in which we continued from May and as well as this November meetings. Let's go ahead and talk about that if we could.
Yes, board members, this is Ben Stanley from the County Attorney's Office. Just to give a little bit of quick background on this matter, we've been talking for a couple of meetings now about the possibility of coming up with a policy that would allow some users that are interested in contributing water to the well. This has been a request from members of the public up there, that folks that have been able to acquire water shares might be able to give some contribution of that. And if a state engineer and a water expert that we would retain for Soldier Summit, either an engineer or an attorney that was specialized in that area of law, could confirm all the details of how that would be used, it would be up to the board's discretion whether you wanted to find some kind of way to do preferential pricing for that person and not in consideration of the contributions of the water shares if they were fully transferable like that into the aquifer and into the wells that exist there or being built there. And so that is something that we have talked about. I've pulled together Public Works and the clerk auditor's representatives to discuss the possibilities. The unfortunate thing right now is we have not yet had the opportunity to put out that RFP to get a water rights expert or an engineer that could help us make sure that that transition was done correctly. And so our recommendation on this one is to continue it again for another future meeting. But the broad question, and it really becomes a board question at the end of the day, is there an appetite to do that kind of special arrangement? What would be a fair way to approach that would be fair to everyone if you were to adopt a policy that would allow some users to get a reduced rate where they're just paying for electricity and maintenance and the wear and tear and the installation of pipes and that kind of thing, but not paying for water itself because they're contributing water through some other means. And if they're able to acquire water shares that give them a certain amount of water, then up to that amount of water, they would just be paying essentially electricity and maintenance and not the water costs. And it's difficult to, tease apart what of the water billing rate is electricity and what is maintenance and what is water, but those are all questions that the board can make some discretionary decisions about. We've talked about what would be appropriate, but we're recommending at this point that it would probably be best on this one to wait until we have that expert online that we still don't have. Public Works tells me that they have drafted up the RFP that would get us that expert. It's just got to be put through a last couple of bits of review and then actually put out for bid so that we can get the right expert retained. So that's item 2. That's our recommendation from staff side, is that we continue this one again.
Any thoughts on that, Mike?
What is the timing on that, do you think, as far as getting a professional engaged and involved?
I don't think it would be a problem to have it by the next meeting. We had Public Works representatives last meeting in November that thought it could be done by this meeting. I don't know how long it typically takes, but I think a month or 2 would be sufficient if everything is good and if we get good responses. Part of that is not knowing what interest and appetite there will be amongst the expert community to respond to an RFP like that. We want to see a few different competitive bids so that we can make the best selection on behalf of the community and on behalf of Soldier Summit. So that's really the question. My guess is that continuing it to the next meeting was probably the best timing to do it. It should be sufficient, and if it's not, we can continue it again, but my hope would be that we could address it at that meeting. And again, any direction the board wants to give us on how much appetite you have for making these kind of special arrangements, one option you have is to say, you know what, it becomes too tricky, or we don't want to create a precedent, or we don't want other people. We've got the all-red situation, which has already caused some complexities there. And then we have other members of the community that have indicated some interest in doing a similar thing. And so the board could say, you know what, we're going to put an end to the all-red situation, and we're going to not allow any future ones, and we're just going to have everybody pay the water rates. We appreciate everybody's interest and hope that you'll still want to contribute in various ways, but we're just, it's too complicated, or it's not worth the whatever. I mean, that's the board's discretion whether you want to do this to begin with. But our suggestion at this point is to continue it at least for another 3 months to the next
Through an
meeting.
RFP, if we were to go that route.
Yeah, and give us time to do that. And that's the plan, actually, and that's in Public Works as well, through the process of getting that RFP drafted. It's just a matter of getting it out to bid, as I said.
Yeah, it sounds convoluted. What's your thoughts about
I
it?
think that we also ought to have a hydrologist look at that well, because I worry about, we've never had to pump that well to its capacity, and with build out happening, and then if we actually even add extra water to that well, can the wells keep up?
So you're inclined to go ahead and go through an RFP to make a judgment to see if it's worth doing that?
Yeah, I've been learning a lot about the water and how it functions, how much water there is in that well, who owns all the shares now in it. And I did talk to Devin Dusnip, who has really a lot of the shares in that well. In fact, I think it's 60 some odd %. And I think from what I understand and what I know, I need help to understand the legitimacy of all of this and to engage a professional to help us do that. I want to be fair with everybody, but if there's places in our documentation when the Soldier Summit Estates was set up on there, and through articles of incorporation or wherever it is, there's supposedly some indication in there that if somebody lives up there full time, then they're encouraged or required to purchase a share of water or a portion of a share. I don't know what it is. I need to review that language. I don't have it in front of me, but anyway, I would tend to think we need to move this to the next meeting and get a professional involved in it.
So your feeling is that we'll go ahead and authorize them to send an RFP to see if we can get a more deliberative approach on this.
I'd like to hear Spencer's opinion.
Yeah, Spencer,
on it.
what are your thoughts?
I mean, I think it's okay to proceed, but I would like to be very cautious. It makes me nervous, We could create a problem we can't keep up with later. So, proceed cautiously.
So if you were to do a RFP, Ben, do you have you already verbalized, you pretty much have a picture how to approach or craft this RFP so we get what we're looking for answered?
I believe so. Typically, we allow Public Works to manage that process. They do a fantastic job with it. They have, I understand, crafted an RFP, and they just wanted to get it through some final levels of review internally and then put it out for bid. And so I haven't seen it yet, but I'm confident that they've taken a great initial approach, and I'll look to make sure that it satisfies what I'm looking for, what I think would be most helpful for Soldier Summit. And then it'll be put out to bid. We'll see what kind of response it gets over a few weeks, and then
Okay.
we'll make a decision about which is the right person to hire, bring that proposal to you, and get the expert online. And I think that accommodates what Spencer's suggesting, that we take a very cautious approach, make sure that we do understand exactly what the water rights mean and what the transferability is. Gives us time to get input from the public. If members of the public have documents they'd like to have us look at, or information, specific citations to references in the Articles of Incorporation, other places in the CC&Rs or whatever, we're happy to take a look at all that. So that's our recommendation at this point. And yeah, I think we do have a pretty good sense of what it should look like.
And Public Works ready make a comment? It's a
Brady
throwaway
Christensen
question.
with Public Works. We do have reports. When that well was first put into operation, we do have reports of what it was pumping, how many gallons a minute that it was pumping. I think the idea of having somebody come in and look at that now and see where we stand compared to what we used to have would probably be beneficial, to get a hydrologist in there and let's examine where we stand with our water. Because I know last year, what we can monitor, the gallons per minute that we could pump were going down as the summer went on. So it was struggling to, we kept up fine, but the gallons per minute we were pumping was down from even springtime till fall. It had dropped quite a bit, so.
Okay.
Will probably even get worse as the build out continues to happen. And more users.
Yeah, that's a possibility. So it sounds like we have a motion to, as part of the discussion.
Can I ask another question, Tom? Do we have any idea, estimated wise, what the cost of this RSP would be?
The RFP won't have a cost other than the internal workings of the county to prepare it, but once it's circulated, it'll request that we get an expert. We'll have them present to us their proposals, and so they'll make a series of proposals. My guess is that most experts are going to be a few $100s an hour, I would guess. I mean, it's a pretty specialized area. There are a lot of attorneys in the state. There are not a lot of water rights attorneys that really understand what water rights mean, and so they may be able to charge a premium. It may be several hundred or four figures an hour for the right kind of expert. And then the question becomes, how many hours of their time are we going to need? And it may be that we can get by with just a few hours of their time looking at the documents, helping us understand, helping us craft the right kind of proposal if the board wants to go that direction. So I'm not guessing a tremendous cost, and maybe others here have some other input on that projection, but my guess would be low 4 or 5 figures maybe, but it really depends a lot on what those proposals look like that we get back.
Okay.
Or at least help answer the question of what our water supply is like and whether it's wise to try to redistribute all of this. And the payment for that expert advice would come out of the, I guess just out of the appropriate fund balance. Looking at the budget for the coming year.
Do we have money, Deneen?
Yes,
Okay.
there's, with the appropriated budget, I think there's enough to cover what would be spent on the water rights. In case of emergency, there's also $20,000 that could be used, and I think that's more than
Sufficient.
sufficient to cover the cost.
Okay.
Comment?
Sure.
Comment?
Sure.
James McClure, Utah County resident. When the banker took over this development from foreclosure from Robert Barris, he hired an attorney, was supposed to be the best in the state of Utah. And he was the one that come up with the figures for who owned the shares in that well. That might save us some time if we can contact the banker and he could tell us what lawyer that was that went through all that information. He paid probably $40-something thousand for that time.
Good suggestion. I think that's a very good suggestion.
So
Thank you, James.
So do you have any other comments, Spencer?
No, I don't have any.
I don't have
Mike?
any either.
So since we're discussing, we don't have an item here to approve anything. I guess we could add to the agenda, make an extension of number 2, that we're authorizing the study, which would be include the banker that was visited about, but also look at submitting or sending an RFP out so we can have an answer back in a couple months. When is the next meeting, Alice?
May 17th.
May 17th, so right about 2 months on the nose. So are we continuing this with the authorization to go ahead and see what studies have been made and then at the same time send an RFP out, so that way when you have the studies completed with the bank or whoever it is that did the original study, you can have that with the RFP, might give us a greater clarity.
Yep, that's perfect.
Okay.
And you don't even have to do that as a motion. You can just make that instruction to staff to look into the past studies and just say, we're instructing staff to do that, and let's make the motion to continue. Or you can make the motion for the whole thing, whichever you'd prefer.
Well, someone's anxious to say something. He's going to jump out of the chair in a minute.
You have on your agenda some public comment, and as the chairperson of the board, you're also welcome to take comments when you feel it's appropriate.
Well, sometimes when these individual items come up, it's always handy to have something that's more enlightening. Please, sir, come up if you have a comment.
Thank you. Robert Baird, property owner up at Soldier Summit. I believe the lawyer's name is Robert Fillerup. It's kind of an easy name to remember when you think about water. And I've actually spoken with him, and he actually did help set up all the water stuff up there. He is retiring, so he's only working part-time, but there's the name if you're interested.
That's a big help. Thank you.
And yeah, he's just a water attorney. I appreciate just a minute to speak to this. I appreciate the desire to conserve and to manage our resources well. I had a question. Is the RFP for the future well, or is it for this question that we're addressing here?
This question.
Well, I believe it's actually for the future well, but also we'll ask them to address this question at the same time.
Okay, and if I remember hearing, you got some funding to help actually pay for that RFP and for the future well and the line across the highway.
That's correct. We anticipate grant money. There's Rebuilding America and ARPA funding, American Rescue Plan Act, and other grant sources that we hope to rely on for the cost of those.
So I just want to make it clear that as far as I was aware, the RFP is specifically asking for that going forward, of how to do that second well, as we've heard that there's a need for it.
Yeah, the second well was addressed earlier. Yeah, we've got that one. This one will be simply what we do with water shares, and if they can be donated in exchange of something else. And that's what we're trying to get an answer on, because it can be a little convoluted.
Sure. I wanted just to propose an idea. When the property was set up, in the county documents, there's a provision and what's the word? I forget. Precedent for, there's language that actually is there for property owners to acquire their own water shares and contribute them to, however. I don't know. I haven't seen that language. I know I've heard about it. It could be found. But there is something out there right now. Another question too is right now there's 3 share owners of the aquifer up here. And I also wanted just to, maybe it's helpful or not, the state regulates what the aquifer is and how much can be pumped out of it. A separate issue is the maintenance of the system, and can the system handle it? There are lots of people, and we have elected officials who are dealing with this question right now today up at the state capitol. And it's and so I think it might feel overwhelming to this commission to have all these questions before you. And I feel like that's why there's a desire to and I see good reasons to get professionals in here. But I just wanted to, from my understanding, the state engineer and there's water districts that decide all of this. They decide how much water can be pumped or can't be pumped out of aquifers.
That goes to something else. But what we're looking at right now is current ownership of shares, whether or not it's equitable to try to have them, if they wanted to donate some of their existing shares to offset something else. That's all we're focusing on now.
Sure. No, and I understand that. But I think oftentimes we're thinking about conservation, and we feel like that's ours. And the state legislatures are the one who directed us to actually change the fee schedule. And so this board did the right thing by creating that conservation fee schedule. And because those who are in charge of this directed that, and I think it was wise that it was done. All I'm proposing is there's language out there for property owners to acquire shares. If they have a share, the state of Utah has said that, so I own 2 shares in that aquifer. And so the state engineer says I can get that water. Now, all I'm proposing is I use your infrastructure to get it to me. If not, I can go to the state engineer and he can approve me to drill a well. but the state engineer is the one who controls that.
Right.
So all I'm proposing is, I thought Spencer Park had a great suggestion last time of going with the old rate of the $5 every 1,000 gallons for any property owners that own water that want to use your infrastructure. Again, because I think the RFP is asking much deeper questions than.
Yeah, and that RFP won't go there. This was constrained just to whether or not you want to donate your shares that you have in hand now in
Sure.
exchange for something else. So that's all this particular item is about. We're not going to those other areas yet.
Well, except for that's what the RFP is actually written up for, is to go there.
That
My understanding is, and I may not know this inside now, but my understanding is that the RFP was to bring on a water rights expert, an engineer who could help with the second well, and then once we have them online for that, we'll also ask them this question about
Yes,
the.
but the second well is a different topic. We're
Yeah.
not even discussing that right now. We're just discussing whether or not it'd be workable, doable to share my shares back to the community or to the county for lower rates and other things. That's all we're discussing now.
So all my proposal is, and sorry for taking so much time, is simply for even owners like Dewsnip, if he uses water right now, I know he's not using it, but if he is, it's not fair that he pays the same rate that other people that own property up there, because people that own property don't own water shares. He owns water shares, so he owns access to that well.
Yeah.
Does he get it free, or what do you charge him if he uses it?
Well, we won't be able to discuss that right now. That's a different topic altogether.
Sure.
So we'll have to get back to this agenda item here.
Okay. Anyway, I thought Spencer Park made a good suggestion of let's go with 5 and let's see how it goes. And again, you're not upholding to anything. Even if you make that tentative thing to say, if somebody has shares and they use our infrastructure, if an expert says we shouldn't do this, you have a right at every board meeting to change everything you do. And so there would be no, you're not beholden to something.
Thank you.
So I would hope, while I stood here at the last board meeting and we hoped that we would get somewhere, we haven't gotten too far, and that's okay. I know we're all busy, but I suspect what will happen maybe at the next meeting is it'll be brought to you to choose one of the contractors that the RFP brings forth. We actually won't have somebody yet we can give information, unless you're allowed to choose without the board's approval, a contractor.
Yeah,
I just wanted to be clear, as you as board
that's-
members know, that you won't
Yeah.
probably have answers next meeting either.
Yeah, next meeting we'll have the RFP completed and then someone nominated or 2 or 3. Yeah,
Yeah, we bring a recommendation to the board,
Yeah.
most likely.
yeah,
But the work won't be done because at that point the board chooses.
exactly.
And so then then we're looking 6 months from now. And that's why if there was an appetite for something just for the infrastructure, again, subject to the state engineer saying, yes, it is in the aquifer, it's owned, it's not, subject to all those legal things, but
Well, thank you.
sorry.
Thanks very much, though. So agenda 2 then, we've discussed it, and so we're approving as part of this agenda 2 for using existing studies as well as send out an RFP so that in 2 months' time, May 17th, I think Alice said,
3 months' time.
3 months' time. Excuse me. Yeah, that is 3 months. Then we will have at least someone or some ones to select from on the RFP list, suggested list. Okay. And perhaps at the same time, we may have some insights from the previous lawyer that did the same type of work.
Yeah, definitely staff will follow up on some of those avenues to see if we can get more information without having to direct all these questions to the expert we bring online.
That makes sense to you, Mike? Yeah. Spencer, did that make sense?
Yeah, no, I think that's fine.
Okay, so we have a motion. Or I guess, excuse me, there's no motion. This was discussion.
Right.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, you can make a motion to continue this item, or we can just instruct staff to make sure this is on the agenda next meeting.
Would you like to continue, or motion to continue this to May 17th?
Motion.
Spencer, why don't you make that motion, because your language is, I think, using the word caution in there, so that'd be good to put in there.
Okay. I would like to make a motion that we go ahead and direct the county staff to go ahead and put together an RFP to bring to us at our next meeting with hopefully qualified candidates, and also include in that RFP the looking at the well cost with a hydrologist or some other professional qualified, and to review those at our next meeting.
Okay.
I'll second that motion.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Did you vote on that, Spencer?
Yep.
Okay. All right, then, item number 3, Deneen, review our financial statements.
Sure. Deneen Jackson, Utah County Clerk Auditor's Office. The financial statement packet includes 3 different statements. The first page is a budget to actual comparison, which this includes the preliminary results for 2021. Everything was under budget. The revenue was almost right on. Essentially, the budgeted revenue was $113,000, and the district collected $116,000. I'll also note that there is one final property tax distribution that the district will receive at the end of March. So that revenue will go up before this is finalized. And then the expenses were under budget, and there was an additional $68,000 that was contributed to the fund balance of the capital projects fund, which the district does have a 10-year capital project plan that will go towards to fund. And then for this year, we're pretty early in the year, so the budget to actual comparison probably isn't as relevant. I will point out that the fees, the district has collected 44.5% of the annual fees. That's a reflection of several of the property owners have chosen to pay their monthly fee on an annual or quarterly or semi-annual basis. So there is sort of an advance lead on the revenue that's collected. So the budget to actual comparison looks great. We're on track for the budget.
Great.
The next financial statement that I wanted to spend some time talking about was the balance sheet, which starts on page 2 of the packet. And I'm just going to do a few comparisons. The fund balance beginning 2021 for the general fund was $55,000, and the preliminary ending fund balance for the same period was $56,000. So it kept on track, not much change. And then the capital projects fund went from $108,000 to $173,000, which reflects that contribution that I mentioned earlier. The district had a positive cash balance in all of its funds and a positive fund balance in all of its funds, so it meets the requirements of state law. And then the final report is the income statement, which that's just going to show the change in the fund balance, how that was calculated between revenue. It's a breakdown of revenues and expenses. I don't see any problems with the financial statements. I'd be happy to answer any questions that the board might have.
So these numbers are true as of 4 days ago, then?
Correct.
February 11th.
Deneen, this is not a real complaint, but can we make this a little bigger? I have a hard time reading that.
Sure, absolutely.
It's mine's a little blurry too. I have a hard time reading the numbers, but
Spencer, do you have any comments?
No, I don't have any.
Deneen, you do a great job on all of this. Thank you.
I don't have any comments myself. Mike, do you?
I had one question. It was on the tax revenue, taxes and the revenue. When does that come in to us?
So there's a little bit that comes every single month, but obviously the biggest distribution of property taxes is in November and December because the property taxes are due December 1st.
So we won't see that number really rise to any size until November, December.
Correct.
Okay.
And so the actual is just what has come in thus far, these just the last 6 weeks of the year.
Right, and mainly what you'll see at the beginning months of the year is the redemptions. Redemptions are people who are paying this year for last year's taxes. They were just a little bit late paying, and they call that a redemption. So that's usually what you'll see coming in early in the year.
Okay. Thank you.
Any further comments, Mike?
I don't.
Yeah, I don't have any, so we'll go on to number 4. Review, approve, and authorize payment of invoices and other current obligations for professional services, operations, maintenance, and other expenses. Could you give us a review of that, Deneen?
Sure. So there's 2 pages just to reflect the fact that we're kind of still working between 2 fiscal years right now. So the first page are the fiscal year 22 expenses that need to be approved. And this is sort of setting up all the anticipated expenses for the year. So we have the insurance premium, the liability insurance premium that I've just estimated at $2,500. We have the legal services for the Utah County Attorney's Office, the clerk and accounting services for the clerk auditor's office, public notices, propane, et cetera. You can read down the list. So those are sort of the recurring expenditures that the district has every year. Are there any questions about
Running
those?
household budget, basically.
Right, exactly,
Mortgages,
almost,
utilities, internet service,
right.
water.
And then the only expenditure, everything, all the 2021 expenditures had been previously approved by the board in other board meetings. The only one that needed to be approved was an administrative overhead charge for Utah County, which reflects some of the HR costs or records management costs, and that's a nominal fee of approximately $1,500.
Okay.
We have to make a motion on this, don't we?
Yes, I'm just getting lost in the lines here. I apologize for that.
You're fine.
Any other comments, Spencer?
No, I don't have any.
We have a motion then?
I'll make a motion that we approve the payment of invoices and other current obligations for professional services, operations, maintenance, and other expenditures as presented.
I will second that motion.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Passes 3-0. Item 5, review, approve, or deny outstanding receivables, past due accounts, and place or remove liens and take necessary corrective action. And we have some confidential material here. We've got number 3, a waiver amount $25. Any comments on that, Deneen?
Yes, so we had a person that incurred a late fee, and the explanation was that their automatic payments had stopped, and so they requested that their late fees be waived. They did make their account current at that time before they requested the waiver. The board has previously waived late fees for that particular customer. There was $100 in late fees that were waived in 2020 and $75 in late fees that were waived in 2021.
Sounds like it's ongoing. So we're just talking about $25 here.
Correct.
I'm going to propose that we waive it.
Spencer?
I'm probably not going to second that. For 3 times in a row, I think we should have some late fees for a reason.
Okay. I'm inclined to go with Spencer on that one. Just
Okay.
because we've given away already.
I'll come your way on that one.
You can vote, you can be contrary about it too as well.
No, I'm good. It doesn't involve a lot of money, but
No.
yeah, we don't want to set precedents either. So.
Well, yeah, and part of the late fees is to recoup a very small percentage of the time spent to review the the account in the first place. So we have a motion then, Spencer?
Yeah, I'll go ahead and make a motion that we go ahead and don't approve the request to waive the late fees.
I'll second it.
And I can support this. So all in favor, say aye. Aye.
Aye, excuse me. Sorry.
Spencer?
They're looking for your vote, Spencer.
Sorry, aye, sorry, you guys are breaking up a little bit. I thought I did several times.
No worries, we didn't hear it over here. Thanks.
We're going to have to do a mind meld, Spencer, so that passes 3-0. We didn't talk about number 5 item, but that was just the first notices were sent out. Additional 6 customers will receive the first notice next month, meaning March, correct?
Yes, so I just put this information on the sheet for the board. Of course, the progression of communication with customers on unpaid bills is they receive a first notice, a second notice, and then a lien is placed on the property. So that's just kind of future looking that there may be some liens that need to be placed on the customers who aren't paying. I will make one note is that there's only one customer that has received a first notice. I received a payment yesterday for the second customer, so their account has been brought current. So really, there's just 2 accounts that will likely have to have a lien placed.
Okay. So, okay, we can move on. Excuse me, agenda number 6, approve and authorize signing of a resolution of the Board of Soldier Summit Special Service District creating a policy enacting a procedure for the approval of minutes. Have you had a chance to look at this, Mike?
I have not. Alice, can you tell us about this?
I can tell you a little bit about this. This is mostly a housekeeping item, really. There's a state law, section 52.4.2034H, that asks public bodies to adopt formal policies for how you approve your minutes. So this is really a very simple thing. It's purely a function of satisfying state law and a little housekeeping. So the policy that we drafted up is basically what we do now. It's meant to be simple. It's meant to be flexible, not to make it complicated for us when we adopt minutes. It's just purely, like I said, complying with the state requirement that we have a formalized adopted policy for how we will adopt our minutes each meeting. So we did that at the start of this meeting. This is how we do it. You can read it there. It's short, 1.5-page resolution that talks about that procedure in 5 steps. The clerk, secretary of the board, takes the written minutes. They got to be posted in accordance with the requirements of the Utah Open and Public Meetings Act. The minutes should be distributed to each board member for review before the meeting in which the minutes will be proposed for approval. The minutes should be approved at a subsequent meeting. If the minutes are not approved at such meeting, the item may be continued to a subsequent meeting. Again, we're trying to be flexible. We're trying to recognize the practical realities that can happen there. And then the 5th step is upon approval of the minutes, the chair or presiding board member should sign the minutes. And minutes may be kept and signed electronically or manually unless otherwise provided for by state or county law. So it's really just an adoption of something that we already do to satisfy a state expectation that we'll have a formalized policy adopted.
Does it require a motion?
It does require a motion because it is a resolution.
I'll make a motion that we accept the resolution of the Board Soldier Summit Special Service District creating a policy enacting the procedure for approval of minutes as been presented to us as board members.
Spencer, do you have any
Second that motion.
All right, no comments on his part, then all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Should we make a mind meld with Spencer on this?
I think you said aye. Spencer?
I did say aye, sorry.
You have to be here next time, Spencer.
Okay.
Forget work, just be here. Okay. Then the last item is 7, set a date, time, and location for the next board meeting, which is proposed to be 10 a.m. May 17th here in this room, which I just did.
You made the motion?
Yes, sir, I guess I did.
I will second that.
Spencer?
What? Did you second it?
Yes.
Okay.
Mike did.
So aye.
I seconded it.
Aye, okay, so that passes. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye, so that passes 3-0. Any public comments? Yes, sir.
One more. James McClure, Utah County resident. I'm just a little confused on when we're required to put in the second well. Is it by property owners that own up there? Because the best I can see, there are only 6 lots that the bank still retains, or is it connections?
Connections.
Okay, and do we have the money for this, or don't we have the money for this?
For the second well,
Yes, and the expansion.
that is in the process with the funding that is being
Yes.
presented, so I would say,
Yes, that's in, actually, it's in the budget itself, actually. It is on
It is.
the very first page, 106 in the budget. You'll see that it's,
Okay.
there are $2 million for the capital projects.
So the last question with this, before engineering gets into it and it's done, is there any public input into what is gonna be put in for across the road at Soldier Summit on the summit side?
I would imagine there'll be a public hearing.
We had a presentation. I think you did that as well as, was
Yeah.
Glenn or Richard here for that? They showed the spots for the locations of the wells and the spots for the pumps and the spots.
Yeah,
Well, actually the route of the pipes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So I think that one's set. Any other comments you'd like to bring up about it?
Well, it just that I've had people come to me since they know that this money supposedly had been approved and that, and ask, well, we'd like to have some input on it and that, and so, but it will be announced then as a public meeting before the engineering's all done and finished.
Can you talk to where we are with the engineering process, Brady?
Nothing has been done on that as far
Okay.
as I know
That's-
yet, so I think, once that, I don't know, I didn't know the money had been officially approved, I'd heard that it was in the works, but.
Yeah.
So I can find out what the status is when we need to start diving in.
Can we put that on the next agenda then?
Absolutely.
Thank you.
Yeah, we can have as much public comment as you want on this kind of an issue. There's certain things that require public hearings, like when we raised water rates, we were required to have by law a late evening, after people were free from work, public meeting to discuss that. We actually had 2. When it comes to something like this, an engineering project is a legal matter. I'd encourage you to send people to Public Works and to these meetings just to come during the public comment section and give as much comment as they'd like. We certainly want input. We want it to be something that the community likes and that's, people are happy with. But by law, the requirements are not as strict as other things that we might do. And so if you'd like to make it an agenda item for
Yeah,
next meeting, we'd be happy
Let's
to
invite the
talk
Public
about it.
Works to be here for that and give us an update where we are with engineer study and work that's being done. And in fact, they could bring those slides and review those again at that meeting in May. Other comments? No mind melding here, please. Well, with that, should we motion to adjourn then?
I'll make a motion to adjourn.
I will second that.
And I can support this. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye, so we are now adjourned.